My husband died and left me only one item in his will, a password, locked cell phone. My children laughed at me as they took over the $50 million company, the mansion, and all the luxury cars. Humiliated and alone, I tried everything to unlock it for months. On my 70th birthday, at the stroke of midnight, the phone unlocked itself and began to ring. A familiar voice cut through the silence of my small, empty apartment. "Happy birthday, my love. You finally made it to 70. Now the real game begins." What Arthur said next made me drop the phone. My hands were trembling so much that the device fell onto the threadbare carpet, but his voice kept coming from the speaker, revealing secrets that would change everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, and the true legacy he had built in the shadows. But to understand how I got to that moment, I have to go back 3 months. 3 months to the exact day of Arthur's funeral, when my perfect world crumbled like a sandcastle in the tide. Arthur died on a Tuesday afternoon. A massive heart attack in his office, surrounded by architectural blueprints and unsigned contracts. He was 68 years old, but he worked like he was 30. His secretary found him slumped over the walnut desk I had given him for our 20th anniversary. She called an ambulance, but it was too late. His heart had stopped beating 15 minutes before anyone opened that door. 15 minutes in which my husband died alone, without my hand holding his, without my voice telling him everything would be okay. That guilt ate at me more than the pain of his absence. The Brazilian mahogany casket was still open at the funeral home when Michael, my oldest son, already had his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating a meeting with the lawyers. He did not even wait for them to close the lid. Caroline was reviewing documents on her tablet, sitting in the front row, wearing that black silk dress that cost more than $5,000. Her dry eyes never once looked toward her father's body. Daniel, the youngest, at least pretended to be sad, but I knew him too well after 35 years. That boy never had an opinion of his own. He was always his sibling's shadow, nodding at whatever they decided. I was sitting alone in the second row. Alone. After 45 years of marriage, no one sat next to me. The floral wreaths filled the room with that sickly sweet smell that turned my stomach. White roses, lilies, gardenias. Arthur hated flowers. He said they were a waste of money for something that would be dead in 3 days. But there they were, hundreds of them, sent by business partners who never really knew him, who never saw him make coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning or stay up all night when the children had a fever. 45 years. And no one sat with me. Mr. Evans, the family lawyer, arrived just as the ceremony began. He was a tall, thin man with silver hair combed back and a leather briefcase that seemed to hold all the secrets of the universe. He leaned in to whisper something to Michael. I saw my son's eyes light up. That greedy glint I knew so well. The same glint he had as a boy when he found coins in the sofa. But this was not about coins. It was about an empire. The ceremony lasted 30 minutes exactly. The pastor spoke of an Arthur I barely recognized. A charitable, generous man, loved by all. Hollow words that floated in the funeral home's air conditioning. No one mentioned that Arthur spent 18 hours a day working. No one said he built his real estate empire from scratch, that he came to this country with $200 in his pocket and a dream bigger than the hunger he felt. No one spoke of the man who collapsed over construction plans because his heart could not take one more minute of pressure. No one spoke of the real man. When it was over, Michael was the first to leave. He did not even approach the casket for a final goodbye. The reading of the will was 2 days later. Mr. Evans summoned us to his 22nd floor office in a glass building in the financial district. The walls were a pale cream color, decorated with framed diplomas and photographs of Mr. Evans shaking hands with politicians and businessmen. The conference table was so polished I could see my reflection in it. I looked old, tired, small. Michael sat at the head of the table as if he already owned the place. Caroline was on his right, checking her phone. Daniel on his left, nervous, drumming his fingers on the wood. I was at the end, as far from the lawyer as possible, as if my presence were an uncomfortable detail no one wanted to face. Mr. Evans opened his briefcase and took out several documents. The sound of paper against paper filled the tense silence. He cleared his throat. He adjusted his glasses. and he began to read in that monotone voice lawyers use to dehumanize even the most painful decisions. I, Arthur Morgan, being of sound mind, declare this document as my last will and testament. Each word fell like a drop of acid on my chest. To my son Michael, I bequeath 40% of the shares of Morgan Properties, including all projects under development in California, Nevada, and Arizona. Michael smiled, a predatory smile that made me nauseous. To my daughter Caroline, I bequeath 30% of the shares, along with the main mansion in Beverly Hills and all its contents. Caroline simply nodded, as if confirming a bank transaction. To my son Daniel, I bequeath the remaining 20% of the shares, plus the classic car collection and the vacation property in Cabo. Daniel exhaled, relieved. 3 children, 90% of a $50 million empire divided among them. I waited. My hands were sweating in my lap. The silence stretched like sticky gum. Mr. Evans turned the page. He avoided my gaze. To my wife, Eleanor. The world stopped. I could hear my own heart pounding against my ribs. I bequeath my personal cell phone, kept in the safe in my private office, with specific instructions that it not be tampered with or forced open under any circumstances. Silence, then laughter. Michael was the first, a dry, cruel laugh that bounced off the glass walls. Caroline covered her mouth, but her shoulders were shaking. Even Daniel, my baby, the one I used to rock when he had nightmares, let out an uncomfortable chuckle. A phone. Michael wiped imaginary tears from his eyes. Dad had a sense of humor to the very end. He worked himself into a heart attack, and the only thing he leaves Mom is an old cell phone. This has to be some kind of mistake. Caroline looked at Mr. Evans, incredulous. Mom gets just a phone while we get the entire empire. Mr. Evans maintained that neutral expression lawyer's perfect with years of practice. The will is clear and was drafted by Mr. Morgan 3 weeks before his passing. It was verified by 3 independent witnesses. There is no mistake. It's pathetic. Michael leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his puffed-up, arrogant chest. 45 years of marriage, and he leaves you a phone that probably does not even work. Something inside me broke in that moment. It was not a loud, dramatic break. It was silent, like when a fine crack appears in old porcelain and you know it will never be the same. That's everything. My voice sounded strange, distant, as if it were coming from someone else. Mr. Evans nodded. There is one additional clause. Mrs. Morgan is permitted to remain in the mansion for 30 days. After that, she must vacate the property. 30 days. 45 years, reduced to 30 days. Caroline was already calculating. We can speed that up. Mom does not need that much space anyway. We can find her a small apartment somewhere reasonable. Reasonable. The word made me laugh. A bitter laugh that surprised even me. Reasonable like giving up my career to raise you? Reasonable like the nights I spent awake when you had the flu? Reasonable like the birthdays, the graduations, every sacrifice I made while your father built his empire? Do not be dramatic, Mom. Michael was putting papers in his briefcase. Dad made his decision. He obviously had his reasons. Maybe you should ask yourself what you did to deserve just a phone. Those words pierced me like a rusty knife. Mr. Evans handed me a small key for the safe in Mr. Morgan's private office. The phone is in there. I took it. It weighed almost nothing, but in that moment, it felt like I was carrying the weight of my entire failed life. My children left that office arguing about numbers, percentages, expansion plans. Not one of them looked back at me. I stayed seated, staring at that tiny key in my wrinkled palm, wondering how an entire life could fit into such a small object. I went to get the phone that same afternoon. Arthur's office was exactly as he had left it the day he died. The blueprint still spread across the walnut desk, a half-finished cup of coffee next to the computer mouse, the scent of leather and pipe tobacco clinging to the burgundy curtains. Everything was frozen in time, as if he were about to walk in at any moment, adjusting his tie and asking me what I was doing there, interrupting his work. The safe was built into the wall behind a huge painting, an abstract piece in orange and gray tones that I always hated but that Arthur insisted was a valuable investment. I moved the heavy frame aside. My hands trembled as I inserted the key into the lock. The mechanism made a soft, delicate click, completely disproportionate to the weight of what I was about to discover. Inside was a single object, a cell phone, an old model, the kind no one uses anymore, with a small screen and physical buttons. It was turned off. I took it out carefully, as if it were a fragile relic or a bomb about to explode. The plastic was cold against my skin. It was heavier than I expected. I found the power button and pressed it. The screen flickered. The brand logo appeared. Then, a background image, a photograph of us from our wedding day. Me at 25 years old, in an ivory dress, flowers in my hair, smiling as if the whole world belonged to me. Arthur beside me, so young, so full of dreams, we did not yet know if would come true. We looked happy, so stupidly happy. Then the lock screen appeared. Enter password. 6 empty circles, waiting for numbers I did not know. I tried the obvious first. Our anniversary date, 030879, error. The screen shook, rejecting my attempt. I tried his birthday, 150456. Error again. Michael's birthday. Error. Caroline's. Error. Daniel's. Error after error after error. After 10 failed attempts, a warning appeared in red letters. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 30 minutes. I sank into Arthur's leather chair, that enormous piece of furniture where he spent hours signing contracts and making decisions that moved millions. It still smelled like him. Like that expensive cologne he wore, mixed with the scent of old papers and ambition. I held the phone against my chest and, for the first time since his death, I truly cried. I did not cry at the funeral. I did not cry at the will reading. But there, alone in his office, surrounded by his things, with that stupid phone in my hands, I fell apart. The tears fell, hot and bitter, soaking my cream-colored blouse. I cried for the 45 years. I cried for the woman I had been, the brilliant architect who gave up her career to be a wife and mother. I cried for every family dinner where my children barely looked at me. I cried because my husband died alone in this office, his heart exploding from pressure, and I was not there to hold his hand. And I cried because part of me was furious with him, furious because he left me this humiliation, this cruel riddle. Why not just leave me something normal? Money? A property? A letter explaining why he hated me so much? But not a locked phone. As if even after death, Arthur was still playing his games of control. I spent the next 30 minutes searching his office for clues. I checked every desk drawer. I found bank statements, construction contracts, old photographs of finished projects. In the bottom right drawer, there was a box of Cuban cigars he never opened and a bottle of 30-year-old whiskey he saved for special celebrations. Nothing that looked like a password. Nothing that explained why this phone was my only inheritance. When the 30 minutes were up, I tried again. The date we met. Error. The street number of our first house. Error. The last 6 digits of his social security number. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 60 minutes. The waiting time was doubling each time. It was a security system designed to thwart hacking attempts or to torture desperate widows. I left the office as it got dark. The 30 days I had to vacate the mansion were slipping away fast. Michael had already sent an appraiser to value the furniture. Caroline had hired an interior designer to redecorate her new house. Daniel simply avoided looking at me. That coward. That night, lying in the king-sized bed I had shared with Arthur for 45 years, I tried the phone again. I tried combinations of numbers that had personal meaning. The number of my old architecture firm. Error. The address of the first property Arthur bought. Error. The year Michael was born. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 120 minutes. 2 hours. The phone was punishing me for my ignorance. The days dragged on like slow torture. During the day, I watched my children dismantle the life Arthur and I had built. Michael sold 3 of his father's classic cars in the first week. Caroline hired a moving company to catalog and pack everything of value. Daniel settled into the Cabo property and posted pictures on social media, drinking cocktails by the infinity pool. At night, I tried to decipher the phone. I tried numerical sequences, historical dates Arthur used to mention. Lucky numbers. zip codes of places we lived. Nothing worked. The wait time increased exponentially. 4 hours, 8 hours, 16 hours. The phone was becoming inaccessible. In the third week, Michael walked into my bedroom without knocking. I was sitting on the bed, the phone in my hands, dried tears on my cheeks, still messing with that thing. His voice dripped with contempt. "Mom, it's pathetic. It's an old phone. Dad probably left it there forgotten years ago, and the lawyer thought it was important. Your father never forgot anything." My voice was hoarse from so much silent crying. "Whatever." Michael shrugged. "We need to talk about your situation. The 30 days are up in a week. Caroline found an apartment for you. 1 bedroom, bathroom, kitchenette. It's small, but enough for 1 person. 1 bedroom. It's all you need. You're not going to have visitors. Your friends stopped calling years ago because you never had time for them. You were too busy being the perfect wife." The cruelty in his voice was like venom. "The apartment costs $900 a month. We'll pay the first 6 months. After that, you'll have to figure it out." "Figure it out?" I'm 66 years old. I have not worked in 45 years. How am I supposed to figure it out? "Not my problem, Mom. Dad made his decisions. Maybe you should have been a better wife." Michael left the room, leaving those words stuck in my chest like rusted daggers. That night, I tried the phone again. My fingers trembled over the numbers. There were almost no logical combinations left to try. I entered my birthday. I was 66, turning 67 in 3 months. Incorrect password. Too many attempts. Device will be locked for 30 days. 30 days. The same amount of time I had to leave my home. The phone shut down completely. The screen went black, dead, unresponsive to any button. I shook it. Desperate. I tried to turn it on again. Nothing. Arthur had left me an impossible puzzle, and now I could not even keep trying to solve it. The move was humiliating. 2 men in gray uniforms packed my few belongings into cardboard boxes. Clothes. Some books. Photographs that no one else wanted. Everything fit in the back of an old van. 45 years of life reduced to 8 boxes. Caroline personally supervised to make sure I did not take anything of value. She checked every box, every bag, as if I were a thief in my own home. "It's just protocol, Mom. Do not be offended." Do not be offended. As if humiliation were optional. The apartment was exactly as Michael had described it. A room with worn-out beige walls, a window that looked out onto a dirty alleyway, a bathroom so small the toilet and shower barely fit. The kitchenette consisted of a 2-burner electric stove and a refrigerator that made unsettling noises every 20 minutes. The men left the boxes in the middle of the room and left. I sat on the thin mattress that came with the rental. Arthur's phone was in my purse, still off, still locked, still mocking me. Outside, the city lived its normal life. Cars passed. People laughed. The world kept spinning while mine had stopped completely. I took out the phone and looked at it. The black screen reflected my face. I looked old, destroyed, defeated. "What did you want me to find, Arthur?" I asked the dead device. "Why did you do this to me?" Silence was its only answer. The days in that apartment turned into a routine of survival and obsession. Every morning I woke up on that thin mattress that creaked with every move, staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering how I had ended up here. The woman I once was, the brilliant architect who designed buildings, who had dreams bigger than the sky, had disappeared so long ago I could not even remember her face. The phone remained on the makeshift nightstand, an overturned wooden crate I found in the building's trash. It was still off, dead. It had been locked for 2 weeks, and I counted every hour that passed until the 30 days were up and I could try again. The money Michael promised arrived only once. $600 deposited into my account with a handwritten note. "We reduced the amount. We feel you spend too much." $600 for rent, food, utilities, medicine. My blood pressure required pills that cost $80 a month. I decided to skip doses to make them last longer. I ate once a day. Cheap bread from the discount supermarket. Sometimes a piece of cheese when it was on sale. Hunger became my constant companion. That dull ache in my stomach that you eventually get used to ignoring. I lost weight. My clothes hung loosely on my bones. When I looked in the bathroom mirror, I saw a stranger. A ghost of a woman who used to be me. My children did not call. Not once. I tried to reach Michael in the third week. I dialed his number from the payphone on the corner because I could no longer afford a cell phone. His secretary answered with that professional, cold voice. "Mr. Morgan is in an important meeting. I'm his mother. It's urgent. He will return your call when he has time." He never returned the call. I tried Caroline. Her phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. "Hi. You've reached Caroline Morgan. Leave your message after the tone." She did not even bother to include a warm greeting. I left a message. Then another. Then another. Absolute silence. Daniel was the only one who responded, but only with a text message. "Mom, I need space. What's happening is complicated for me too. Please understand." Space. He had a mansion in Cabo, and I had 200 square feet of desperation. The nights were worse. The building was full of noises that kept me awake. Couples fighting in the apartment above. Loud music from the hallway, constant sirens in the street. And me, lying in the dark, holding that dead phone against my chest as if it were the only thing connecting me to reality. I talked to it. To Arthur. To the phone. To both. Why did you hate me so much? What did I do to deserve this? I gave up everything for you. My career. My dreams. My friends. I became the wife you needed, the mother your children needed. I erased myself so all of you could shine. And this is what I get. The phone never answered, but I kept talking. I turned 67 in that apartment. No one remembered. Not a call. Not a text. Not a word. I spent the day sitting by the window, looking at the dirty alley, eating dry bread, counting the hours until the phone might unlock again. When the 30 days were finally over, my hands were trembling so much I could barely hold the device. I pressed the power button. The screen flickered. The logo appeared. Then the picture of our wedding. And finally, the lock screen. Enter password. 6 empty circles waiting for me. This time I was more careful, more strategic. I had spent 30 days thinking, remembering, analyzing every significant moment of our life together. I had a list written in an old notebook, all the possible combinations I had not yet tried. I started with the date Arthur arrived in this country. Error. The number of his first rented apartment. Error. The date he opened his first bank account. Error. Every error was a stab. But I continued. I had to continue. Because if I gave up, then everything had been for nothing. My entire life had been for nothing. I tried the date Arthur proposed to me. We were in a cheap Italian restaurant. He did not have money for a ring yet, but he asked me anyway. I said yes, without hesitation. Error. I tried the day we bought our first house. A small property in a forgotten neighborhood, but it was ours. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 30 minutes. 30 minutes that felt like 30 years. When I could try again, something in my strategy changed. I stopped thinking about happy dates. I started thinking about painful dates. Arthur was not a sentimental man. He was pragmatic. Tough. Built by suffering. I tried the date his father died. Arthur was 15. He never talked much about it, but I knew it had marked him deeply. Error. The date we lost our first business. We almost filed for bankruptcy. Arthur did not sleep for weeks. Error. The date his mother was deported. He could not do anything to stop it. He was 19 and felt completely powerless. Error. Too many incorrect attempts. Try again in 60 minutes. This was becoming an endless nightmare. Every failed attempt sank me deeper into despair. I started to wonder if Arthur had simply chosen a random password. Something meaningless. Just random numbers to torture me forever. But no, Arthur never did anything without a purpose. Every decision he made in his life had a calculated reason behind it. This phone was no different. There was an answer. I just had to find it. 2 more months passed. The money from Michael stopped coming completely. I called the office again. This time, not even the secretary answered. Just a machine with automated options that led me in an endless circle. I left desperate messages. Please. Nothing. I started selling my things. First, the clothes that no longer fit because of the weight loss. Then, the books, the framed photographs, everything that had any value, however minimal. A thrift store gave me a few dollars for each load. It was not enough. It was never enough. But it kept me alive one more day. The landlord knocked on my door on the morning of the 3rd month. He was a heavy-set man, with breath like beer and eyes that showed no compassion. "Mrs. Morgan, you owe 2 months' rent. I know. My children promised to pay. But I do not care about your children. I need the money, or you'll have to leave. Please, I just need a little more time. 2 weeks. If you do not pay, I'm kicking you out." He closed the door, leaving the ultimatum hanging in the air like a death sentence. 2 weeks. $1,800 that I did not have and no way to get. That night, sitting on the mattress, my stomach empty and my heart even emptier, I held the phone in my hands. I was not even trying to unlock it anymore. I just stared at it, looking for answers in its dark screen. "Arthur, if there's any part of you still in this world, I need you to give me a sign. Anything. Because I cannot do this anymore. I'm breaking. I'm not strong anymore. I'm nothing." The phone remained silent. But then, something changed. A strange sensation like electricity in the air. I looked at the screen. It was still off. But something was different. I could not explain it. It was as if the object in my hands had come alive for a second. I turned it on again. The familiar routine. Logo. Photograph. Lock screen. This time I did not think. I did not calculate. I just let my fingers move on instinct. Numbers that came from somewhere deep in my memory. A place I did not know existed. 082325. The screen flickered. My heart stopped. The circles filled with green. The phone unlocked. The screen lit up with an almost blinding brightness in the darkness of my miserable apartment. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. After months of failed attempts, of accumulated frustration, of nights crying in silence, I had finally unlocked the device Arthur left me as my only inheritance. Our anniversary, August 23rd, and my age, when we got married, 25. It was so obvious and so hidden at the same time. Arthur always said I was the most beautiful woman in the world on our wedding day. He held that date as if it were sacred. And I, stupidly, had only tried the date without thinking to add my age from that moment. The home screen appeared. There were no normal apps. No social media, no games. Just 3 icons in the center of the black screen, a folder called For Eleanor, a calendar with one date marked in red, and a voice recorder app. My fingers hovered over the screen, not daring to touch anything. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. What had Arthur left in here? Why all this mystery? Why torture me for months before revealing whatever this contained? I touched the folder first. It opened to show a list of numbered files. File 1, File 2, File 3. They went all the way to File 15. Each one was a considerable size, probably documents or photographs. I opened the first file. It was a scanned document, a property deed. I read the first line and my breath stopped. Property registered in the name of Eleanor Morgan. An address in San Diego. A 4-story commercial building in a premium downtown area. Estimated value, $3,200,000. And it was in my name. It had been in my name for the last 8 years. My eyes scanned the document, unable to process what I was seeing. Arthur's signature was there, along with notary seals, dates, everything legitimate. This was not a joke or a mistake. It was real. I opened the second file with trembling fingers. Another property deed. This time an apartment complex in Portland. 24 rented units. In my name. Value, $2,800,000. The third file. An industrial warehouse in Las Vegas. $1,400,000. In my name. Fourth file. Fifth. Sixth. I kept opening documents like a woman possessed. Properties all along the West Coast. Buildings. Land. Investments. All registered in my name. All with impeccable legal documentation. all worth millions. When I finished reviewing all 15 files, my hands were shaking so badly I had to drop the phone onto the mattress. The numbers danced in my head. I added them up mentally, though I could barely think straight. $42 million. $42 million in properties I never knew existed, all legally mine, hidden for years in records I never checked because I trusted Arthur implicitly to handle the finances. The world was spinning around me. The walls of the miserable apartment seemed to be closing in. The air became thick, hard to breathe. This could not be real. It was too much. It was impossible. But there were the documents. Scanned, signed, real. Arthur had left me a secret empire. While my children were fighting over their $50 million, I had $42 million hidden in properties that no one else knew about. And according to the documents, all these properties were generating income. Rents, profits, money that had been flowing into a bank account I also did not know I had. I exited the folder and touched the calendar icon. It opened to show a single marked day, October 18th. My 70th birthday. It was exactly 3 weeks away. There was a note attached. Everything will be revealed on this date. Wait, my love, wait. 3 weeks. Arthur wanted me to wait 3 more weeks before revealing everything. But why? What else was there? He had already left me a fortune. What else could there be? I touched the third icon. The voice recorder. There was a single recording saved. Duration, 43 minutes. Date of recording. 2 weeks before Arthur died. 2 weeks before his heart exploded in that office, surrounded by blueprints and contracts. My finger hovered over the play button. A part of me wanted to press it immediately, to hear his voice again, to understand what the hell was going on, but another part was afraid, a deep primal fear of what that recording might contain. The tears started to fall before I could stop them. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of confusion, of anger, of relief, of 1,000 contradictory emotions hitting me all at once. Why did you not tell me anything? I spoke to the phone as if Arthur could hear me. Why did you let me suffer? Why did you put me through all this? But I knew Arthur. I knew how he thought, how he planned, how every move he made had 10 calculated steps ahead. This was not pointless cruelty. It was a test, or a lesson, or both. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. I took a deep breath, and I pressed the play button. Static. Then a clearing of the throat, and then his voice, as clear as if he were sitting next to me. Hello, Eleanor. If you are listening to this, it means I managed to keep this plan secret until the end. It means I died without telling you anything. And it means you have been through the hell I designed specifically for you. His tone was calm, serene, like when he explained business contracts or financial decisions. I know you are furious with me right now. You have every right to be. I left you a locked phone while our children got everything visible. I made you look like the fool, the forgotten one, the one who was worthless. And worse, I let them humiliate you. I let them kick you out of your own home. I let you go hungry and cold in some horrible place. A pause. I could hear his heavy breathing on the recording. I'm sorry, my love. I'm sorry for every second of pain I caused you. But I needed it to happen exactly like this. I needed our children to show who they truly are when they think they have won everything. I needed the world to see them without their masks. And more importantly, I needed you to see yourself without me. My hand covered my mouth. The tears were falling silently. For 45 years, you were my wife, my partner, the mother of my children. But somewhere along the way, you forgot who you were before you were all of that. You forgot the brilliant architect, the woman with her own dreams. You became my shadow, and I allowed it because it was easier for me, more convenient. His voice broke, slightly. This phone is not just an inheritance, Eleanor. It is your liberation. The documents you found are real. The money is yours. It always was. I built that parallel empire using your name, because I knew that one day you would need to be independent. I knew our children would become greedy monsters. I watched them grow up and refused to see it clearly. That was my greatest failure as a father. The recording continued. Every word was a hammer striking my heart. In 3 weeks, you will turn 70. On that day, this phone will unlock the rest of the plan. But for now, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You never were. And what comes next will change everything. Static. End of recording. I sat in the darkness, the phone still in my hands, processing what I had just heard. I did not sleep that night. I could not. I stayed sitting on that thin mattress, holding the phone as if it were a sacred object, replaying Arthur's recording over and over until I had memorized every word, every pause, every breath. His voice filled the empty apartment, making it feel less lonely, less miserable. But it also filled my head with 1,000 questions that still had no answers. What else had he planned? What would happen on my 70th birthday? Why wait so long? He had already given me the properties. He had already given me a fortune I did not even know existed. What else could there be? When the sun began to filter through the dirty window, illuminating the cracks in the walls, I made a decision. I would not tell my children anything. Not yet. Arthur had designed this as a test, as a calculated revelation. If he had waited until my birthday to reveal everything, then I would wait too. I wanted to see just how far their greed would go, how far they were willing to sink me before the truth came out. The next few days were strange. I was still the same poor woman living in that awful apartment, eating cheap bread, counting pennies. But now, there was a secret burning inside me, a knowledge that changed everything. I walked the streets feeling as if I had an invisible superpower. People looked at me and just saw a forgotten old woman. They did not know I owned buildings, properties, a hidden empire. The landlord knocked on my door again. His knocks were aggressive, impatient. "Mrs. Morgan, time's up. Either you pay now, or I'm kicking you out today." I opened the door just a crack. He smelled of alcohol and stale sweat. "I need 2 more days. Please. I already gave you 2 weeks. No more extensions. 2 days. I'm begging you." Something in my voice, maybe the genuine desperation, made him hesitate. He snorted in frustration. 2 days, not 1 more, and you better have the full amount, or I'm calling the police to drag you out. He left, cursing under his breath. I closed the door and leaned against it. 2 days. My birthday was in 19 days. Still too long, but I had documents proving I owned $42 million in properties. Technically, I could go to a bank, show the papers, access the accounts. But something stopped me. Arthur's voice on that recording. "Wait, my love. Wait." I decided to try one last time with my children. Maybe, just maybe, there was some humanity left in them. I took the bus to Michael's office. The ride took an hour and a half, crossing the city from my forgotten neighborhood to the glittering financial district where my oldest son played at being an important executive. The building where he worked was all glass and steel. Imposing. Cold. The lobby had marble floors so polished I could see my reflection. I looked small. Insignificant. The receptionist stopped me before I could even get near the elevators. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm Michael Morgan's mother. I need to see him." She looked me up and down, evaluating my worn clothes, my old shoes, my tired face. Her expression shifted to something between pity and contempt. "Mr. Morgan is in meetings all day. I can leave him a message. Please, just 5 minutes. It's urgent. I'm sorry, ma'am. Without an appointment, I cannot let you go up." Her tone was final, inflexible. I just stood there like a fool, feeling the stares of the people walking by. Executives in expensive suits. Women in heels that clicked like hammers against the marble. All of them busy. All of them important. And me, an old woman in their way. I waited in the lobby for 3 hours, sitting on a bench near the entrance, watching people come and go. The receptionist threw me occasional, annoyed glances, as if my presence were contaminating the elegant atmosphere. Finally, Michael came out of the elevator. He was with 2 other men in gray suits, laughing about something one of them had said. I stood up quickly, almost tripping over my own feet. "Michael." He stopped. The smile vanished from his face, replaced by something close to embarrassment. But it only lasted a second. Then came the irritation. "Mom, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. It's important." The men with him exchanged uncomfortable looks. Michael gestured to them. "Go on ahead." I'll catch up with you at the restaurant." He waited until they were gone. Then he looked at me with those cold eyes that were once the innocent eyes of my baby. "You have 2 minutes. Talk. They're going to evict me from the apartment. I do not have money for the rent. I need help. We gave you money at the beginning. It was not enough. It's barely enough to eat. And you all stopped sending more, because we felt you needed to learn how to manage your money." His voice was condescending, as if talking to a foolish child. "Michael, I'm your mother. How can you leave me on the street? Dad made his decisions. He knew what he was doing. If he left you just a phone, it was for a reason. That phone?" I stopped. I almost said it. I almost revealed everything right there. But something held me back. The way he was looking at me. Like I was a problem he needed to solve quickly so he could get back to his important life. "That phone is all I have left of him." "Exactly. So keep it as a memento and move on. Get a job. I do not know, clean houses or something. You're 67 years old, not 100. You can still be useful." Every word was a slap. But the worst part was his expression. Indifferent. Bored. As if this conversation were a waste of time he could be using to make more money. "Is that all I'm worth to you? After everything I did for you all? Oh, Mom. Always so dramatic. You did what mothers are supposed to do. No one asked you to be a martyr." He checked his expensive watch. "I have to go. Good luck with your situation." He turned and walked toward the glass door. He did not look back. Not once. I stood in that lobby like a pillar of salt. The receptionist was watching me with a mix of pity and relief that I was finally leaving. The tears wanted to come, but I swallowed them. Not here. Not in front of all these people. I left the building and walked aimlessly for hours. My feet hurt, but I did not care. The physical pain was easier to handle than the ache in my chest. That enormous void where my children's love used to be. When I got back to the apartment, it was already dark. I found a note taped to my door. It was from the landlord. "Final notice. Pay tomorrow or I will be forced to take legal action." I sat on the floor in the hallway, my back against the door, holding that note. Arthur's phone was in my purse. I took it out and looked at the screen. The calendar still showed that marked date. October 18th. It was still 18 days away. "Arthur, I do not know if I can wait that long," I whispered to the phone. "I do not know if I'm as strong as you thought I was." But then I remembered something from the recording, something I had overlooked in my first listen. Arthur had said, "You are not alone. You never were." What did that mean? I was completely alone. My children had abandoned me. I had no friends because I had neglected them for years to take care of my family. I had no one. Unless Arthur had left something else. Someone else. I went back into the apartment and opened the phone. I checked every icon, every folder, looking for something I had missed, and then I saw it. In the bottom corner of the screen, almost invisible, a contacts icon. I opened it. There was a single number saved, no name, just a number with a California area code. My finger hovered over the call button. Should I do it? Who was this person? Why had Arthur left only this contact? I took a deep breath. I pressed call. The phone rang 3 times. 4. 5. I thought no one would answer. But then, a man's voice, older, warm. "Hello, Eleanor. I've been waiting for your call." My voice got stuck in my throat. This man on the other end of the line knew my name. He had been waiting for me, but I had no idea who he was. Who? Who is this? I finally managed to articulate, my fingers gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "My name is Antonio Garcia. I was Arthur's best friend for 40 years. I am also his personal attorney, different from Mr. Evans, who handled the family's corporate affairs." His voice was gentle, patient, as if he perfectly understood my confusion. "Arthur asked me to wait for your call. He told me it would come exactly when you needed it most. I do not understand any of this. I know, and I am deeply sorry for what you have been going through." Arthur told me the whole plan. At first I thought he was crazy, that it was too cruel to make you suffer like this. But he insisted. He said it was the only way for you to wake up. Wake up from what? From 45 years of being invisible, of being someone else's shadow, of forgetting who you were. Antonio paused. You found the property documents. Yes, I still cannot believe they're real. They are completely real and legal. Every one of those properties has been generating income for years. The money has been accumulating in a special account in your name. There is currently about $6,300,000 in cash available, in addition to the value of the properties. My legs gave out. I had to sit on the mattress before I fell. 6 millions. In cash. Available. While I was about to be kicked onto the street for not being able to pay $1,800. Why did Arthur not tell me anything? Why let me suffer like this? Because he knew you better than anyone, Eleanor. He knew that if he told you while he was alive, you would insist that money be used for the children, for the family, for anyone but yourself. You were always like that, always putting yourself last. He was right. Antonio was completely right. If Arthur had told me he had that secret empire, I would have insisted it be given to Michael, to Caroline, to Daniel. I never would have considered that I deserved something for myself. What am I supposed to do now? For now, nothing. Arthur was very specific about that. He wants you to wait until your birthday. Everything will be fully revealed then. There is more than what you have seen so far. More? What more could there be? I cannot tell you. Arthur made me swear not to interfere with his plan, but I can help you with your immediate situation. I understand you are about to be evicted. Tomorrow. If I do not pay tomorrow, they're kicking me out. That is not going to happen. I am transferring $10,000 to you tonight. Use it to pay the back rent and have something to live on until your birthday. The money is coming from your own account. It is not charity, it is yours. I do not know what to say. Do not say anything. Just hold on a little longer. It's only 17 days. Arthur was right about many things, but especially about you. You are stronger than you think. His voice softened. One more thing, Eleanor. Your children know nothing about this. Mr. Evans, the other lawyer, does not either. Arthur compartmentalized everything so no one could ruin the plan. When your birthday arrives, everyone is going to be in for a surprise. Especially my children. Especially them. I could hear a smile in his voice. Take care, Eleanor. And do not hesitate to call if you need anything. That number will always be available for you. The call ended. I stared at the phone, processing everything. Arthur had planned this with surgical precision. Every detail, every moment of suffering had a purpose. And although part of me was still furious with him for putting me through this, another part was beginning to understand. He had set me free. In his own twisted, complicated way, he had given me the chance to see myself without him, without my children, without anyone else defining me. That night, for the first time in months, I ate a decent meal. I used the last few dollars I had to buy chicken, rice, and vegetables. I cooked on that tiny electric stove, and the aroma filled the apartment, making it feel almost like a home. While I ate, I checked my phone constantly, waiting for the transfer Antonio had promised. It arrived at 11 o'clock at night. A bank notification lit up the screen. Deposit received. $10,000. I stared at those numbers until my eyes filled with tears. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of hope, of something I had not felt in so long. I had almost forgotten what it felt like. The next morning, I went straight to the landlord's office. It was on the first floor, a small room that smelled of cigarettes and old files. He was sitting behind a messy desk, surprised to see me. Mrs. Morgan, I'm here to collect or to call. I placed an envelope on his desk. Inside was $2,000 in cash. I had withdrawn it early that morning from an ATM. Here is the back rent plus next month, all in cash. He opened the envelope, counted the money twice, looking at me with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Where did you get this? That is not your problem. We're settled. Yes, we're settled. He was still looking at me as if I had done something illegal. I walked out of that office with my head held high. For the first time in months, I did not have to humiliate myself. I did not have to beg. I had money. I had power. Even though I still lived in that awful apartment, even though I still wore old clothes, there was something different inside me. a spark that had been extinguished for far too long. The next few days passed in a strange haze. I was still the same Eleanor on the outside, but inside, something fundamental had changed. I walked the streets and saw the world differently. I no longer felt like a victim. I felt like someone biding her time. I tried contacting Caroline again. This time, to my surprise, she answered. Mom. Her voice sounded annoyed, as if I had interrupted something important. Caroline, I just wanted to know how you are. Busy. The mansion needs a complete remodel. The designer says everything is outdated. We're going to spend about $500,000 on renovations. $500,000. The amount would have paralyzed me days ago. Now I just felt a bitter laugh rising in my throat. That sounds expensive. It's an investment. Anyway, why were you calling? I just wanted to hear your voice. It's been months since we talked. Well, we've talked. I have to go. The designer is waiting. With no goodbye, she hung up. I stared at the phone. Not one question about how I was. Not a second of genuine interest. Caroline was so consumed by her new wealth that she had completely forgotten her mother existed. Daniel had not called either. Michael was still ignoring my messages. All three were too busy enjoying their inheritance to remember the woman who gave them life. But I was not angry anymore. I was at peace. Because I knew something they did not. And in 17 days, everything would change. I spent that time preparing myself mentally. I reread the property documents. I listened to Arthur's recording. I spoke with Antonio occasionally, who gave me updates on how the properties were generating more income each month. I also started taking better care of myself. I ate 3 meals a day. I slept better. I even bought new clothes, nothing extravagant, but clean and dignified. The change was subtle, but significant. And every night, before going to sleep, I looked at the calendar on Arthur's phone. 17 days, then 16, 15, 14, counting down to the revelation that would change everything. The days dragged on with painful slowness, but at the same time, they flew by. Every morning I woke up with a mix of anticipation and terror. What would happen when my birthday arrived? What else had Arthur planned? The uncertainty gnawed at me, but it also kept me alive in a way I had not experienced in decades. 10 days before my birthday, I received an unexpected call. It was not from Antonio. It was from Mr. Evans, the family's corporate lawyer. My heart sped up. Had he discovered something? Had Arthur's plan leaked? Mrs. Morgan, I need to see you. It's urgent. His voice sounded tense, almost nervous. About what? I would prefer to discuss it in person. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? I had no way to refuse without raising suspicion. I'll be there. I barely slept that night. My mind created 1,000 different scenarios. Maybe Michael had discovered the properties. Maybe Mr. Evans had found some irregularity in the will. Maybe Arthur's entire plan was about to fall apart before its conclusion. I arrived at Mr. Evans's office 15 minutes early. I was wearing one of my new dresses, a dark gray color, simple but respectable. The same receptionist who had seen me months ago, broken and desperate, now looked at me differently. She still did not know I had a fortune, but something in my posture, in the way I walked, had changed. Mr. Evans had me come in immediately. His office was the same. Cream-colored walls, framed diplomas, that polished table where the will that changed my life had been read. But this time, he was not alone. Michael was there. So were Caroline and Daniel. All three were sitting in the same chairs they had occupied on that terrible day. And they were all looking at me with expressions I could not quite decipher. Worry? Guilt? Fear? Sit down, Mom. Michael pointed to the empty chair at the end of the table, the same place where they had humiliated me months ago. I sat down slowly, keeping my expression neutral. My heart was pounding like a war drum, but I was not going to let them see it. Mr. Evans cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and spoke in that professional tone he used to mask discomfort. Mrs. Morgan, I've called you here because a complicated situation has arisen. Over the past few weeks, we have been auditing the finances of Morgan Properties as part of the transition process, and we have discovered certain irregularities. Irregularities. I kept my voice calm. Depths. Michael interjected, his face tense. Massive debts that Dad hid in the corporate structure. Loans with sky-high interest rates. Projects that are losing money. Contracts with penalty clauses that are destroying us. Caroline looked pale, her hands trembling slightly. We are in serious trouble, Mom. The company we thought was worth $50 million actually owes nearly $40 million. We are on the verge of bankruptcy. A heavy silence filled the office. I processed this information with a mixture of shock and growing understanding. Arthur had done this. He had structured his visible empire as a trap, a beautiful, golden trap that was now closing in on my children. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked finally. "Mr. Evans exchanged glances with my children before continuing. "Because legally, you are still part of the Morgan family, and there may be certain assets in your name that could help resolve this crisis." There it was, the real reason for this meeting. They were desperate and thought I might have something of value hidden somewhere. "I have nothing," I said simply. "You were there when the will was read. I received a phone. That's all. That phone." Michael leaned forward. "Did you manage to unlock it?" My mind worked quickly. I could lie. I could say no. But something in me wanted to see how far they would go. I wanted to see if there was any spark of real humanity, or if this was all just financial panic disguised as family concern. Yes, I unlocked it. The three of them tensed visibly. Mr. Evans leaned forward, anxiously. And what was inside? Old photographs, voicemails, memories. It was not entirely a lie. Those things were there too. I just had not mentioned them. Nothing of monetary value. The disappointment on their faces was palpable. Michael leaned back in his chair, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "This is a disaster. Dad left us a rotten empire. Why would he do something like that? Because he wanted to teach you a lesson," I thought. "Because he wanted to show you that greed has consequences. Because you became exactly the kind of people he despised." But I did not say any of that. I just sat there, watching them fall apart. Caroline started to cry. Not delicate, pretty tears. Ugly, desperate tears from someone watching her perfect world collapse. I'm going to lose the mansion. The designer already spent $200,000 on renovations, and now I cannot pay him. He's going to sue me. Daniel looked sick, his skin a greenish hue. I sold 2 of the classic cars for way too little because I needed cash fast. Now I find out those cars were collateral for a loan. I'm in serious legal trouble. I observed all 3 of them. My children, the people I grew up loving, and I felt nothing. Not joy in their suffering, but not compassion either. Just a void where a mother's unconditional love used to be. "I'm sorry for you," I said. And it was genuine. I was sorry. I was sorry they had reached this point. I was sorry Arthur had to teach them in this brutal way. But I do not know how I can help. Could you talk to Mr. Evans? Michael now sounded almost pleading. See if there's any way to reclaim a part of the inheritance. Something Dad might have overlooked. Anything. After 45 years of marriage, your father left me a phone. Do you really think he overlooked anything? I let the irony hang in the air. You received everything. I received nothing. Those were his decisions. But you were his wife. And you are his children, I interrupted. If he wanted to punish me with nothing, what makes you think he did not want to punish you with debts? The silence that followed was uncomfortable, tense. Mr. Evans coughed nervously. There is another option. The 3 of you could file for corporate bankruptcy. You would lose the company, the properties, everything. But you could start over. Start over? Caroline almost shouted. With what? We have nothing without Dad's money. None of us has ever really worked in our lives. And there it was, the naked, ugly truth. My children were parasites. Beautiful, educated, well-dressed, but parasites nonetheless. Arthur had given them everything, and they never learned to build anything for themselves. I stood up. If there is nothing else, I'd like to leave. Mom, wait. Daniel stood up too. For the first time in months, he was really looking at me. Not through me, but directly into my eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. For how we treated you. for kicking you out of the house, for everything. It was an apology, finally. But it came late. It came only when they needed something. It was not genuine, it was convenient. It's okay, Daniel. I lied. It was not okay. Nothing was okay. I hope you find a solution. I left that office feeling strangely light. I had faced my children. I had seen their desperation. And I had not given in. I had not revealed anything. Arthur would be proud. On the bus back to my apartment, I looked out the window at the city passing by. Tall buildings, busy people, life happening in all directions. And me, sitting there with a secret that would change everything in 9 days. 9 days until my 70th birthday. 9 days until the truth came out. 9 days until Arthur had the last word. The last 9 days were a sweet agony. Every hour that passed brought me closer to the final revelation, but it also increased my anxiety. What else had Arthur planned? He had already given me a fortune. He had already exposed our children for who they really were. What else could there be? Antonio called 3 days before my birthday. His voice sounded different, more serious, more formal. Eleanor, I need you to come to my office on your birthday, at 9 o'clock in the morning, sharp. What's going to happen? Everything will be revealed then. Arthur left very specific instructions. I have also invited your children and Mr. Evans. Everyone needs to be present. My stomach twisted. Do they know what the meeting is for? They only know it's about pending matters of Arthur's estate. They have no idea what's really coming. He paused. Eleanor, prepare yourself. What is about to happen will change everything. Not just for you, but for everyone. The call ended, leaving me with more questions than answers. I spent those 3 days in a constant state of nervousness. I cleaned the apartment obsessively, even though it was already clean. I reread the property documents. I listened to Arthur's recording, searching for clues I might have missed. The night before my birthday, I could not sleep. I stayed awake, looking at the ceiling, listening to the building's nighttime sounds. Someone was arguing in the apartment above. A baby was crying down the hall. Life went on as normal for everyone but me. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I gave up and got up. I took a shower with water that alternated between lukewarm and ice cold because the heater was unpredictable. I dressed carefully. I had bought a dark green suit with some of the money Antonio had given me. It was not luxurious, but it was elegant, appropriate. I looked in the mirror and almost did not recognize the woman looking back at me. She was no longer the destroyed widow from 3 months ago. There was something different in my eyes. Determination. Strength. Something that had been dormant for 45 years and was finally waking up. I arrived at Antonio's office at 8:40. The building was different from Mr. Evans's. Older, with exposed brick and wood-framed windows. Antonio's office was on the 3rd floor. An older secretary greeted me with a genuine smile. Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Garcia is waiting for you. She led me down a hallway with wooden floors that creaked under our steps. Antonio's office was cozy, filled with books, with a dark mahogany desk and worn leather armchairs that looked like they had been there for decades. Antonio stood up when I entered. He was a man in his 70s, with completely white hair, kind eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses, and a smile that radiated warmth. Eleanor. He took my hands gently. Happy birthday. Thank you. My voice came out shaky. Sit down. The others will be here soon. But before they arrive, I want to give you something. He took a thick envelope from his desk and handed it to me. It was sealed with red wax, an old-fashioned detail that was very much like Arthur. What is this? A letter. Arthur wrote it for you to read today, before the meeting. Take your time. He left me alone in the office. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside were several pages, handwritten in Arthur's angular script. I would recognize that handwriting anywhere. My dearest Eleanor, if you are reading this, it means you survived. I knew you would. You are so much stronger than you ever gave yourself credit for. These last few months have been hell for you. I designed it that way, not because I hated you, but because I loved you too much to let you live the rest of your life as my shadow. You needed to break completely so you could rebuild yourself. Our children became monsters. That is my fault. I gave them too much. I taught them that money was power, but I never taught them compassion, humility, or hard work. When I saw what they had become, I knew I had to do something drastic. The empire they inherited is real, but it is structured to teach them a lesson. All those debts, all those problems, are consequences of decisions I made intentionally. I wanted them to feel pressure. I wanted them to understand that money without wisdom is a curse. But you, my love, you deserve something different. That parallel empire I built in your name is completely yours. 42 million in properties, plus the 6 million in cash that has accumulated. But that is not all. There is a third part of my estate that no one knows about. Not even Antonio, until 2 weeks ago. For the last 15 years, I have been investing in tech companies, international real estate, and investment funds under a shell corporation registered in Delaware. That corporation is worth approximately $68 million, and it is entirely in your name. Adding it all up, you are the owner of more than $116 million. You are one of the wealthiest women in California, and no one knows it. Today, in this meeting, Antonio will reveal all of this in front of our children. They will see your true power. They will see that the man they thought had forgotten you, in reality, gave you everything. But here is the most important part, Eleanor. That money is not for you to become like them. It is for you to rebuild your life on your own terms. Travel. Design buildings again. Pursue the dreams you sacrificed for us. Live. And about our children. That decision is yours. You can help them out of their debts, or you can let them learn the hard way. I will not judge you for whichever decision you make. I am in no position to judge anymore. I just want you to know that every decision I made, every moment of pain I caused you, was because I believed in you. In the woman you were before you met me. In the woman you can still be. Happy 70th birthday, my love. May these be the first of many more to come. Yours always, Arthur. The tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of understanding, of forgiveness. Arthur had given me everything. Not just money. He had given me the chance to rediscover myself, to be strong, to be me again. The door opened. Antonio peeked his head in. They've arrived. Are you ready? I wiped my tears. I took a deep breath. I stood up, straightening my back, lifting my chin. I'm ready. We entered the conference room. Michael, Caroline, and Daniel were already there, sitting on one side of the table. Mr. Evans was with them, his expression confused. None of them understood why they were there. When they saw me walk in, their expressions were of shock. I was no longer the broken woman they had seen days ago in Mr. Evans's office. There was something different about me. Power, presence, control. I sat on the other side of the table, directly across from them. Antonio placed himself at the head, opening his briefcase and taking out documents. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today is Mrs. Eleanor Morgan's 70th birthday, and as per the specific instructions left by Arthur Morgan, the full truth about his estate will be revealed today. Michael leaned forward, impatient. Is there more money? Something that can help us with the debts? Antonio looked at him with an expression that could have been pity, or amusement, or both. Oh yes, Michael. There is much more money. But it is not for you. And then, the revelation that would change everything began. Antonio placed the documents on the table with deliberate, ceremonial movements. Each paper that landed sounded like a final judgment. My children watched with a mixture of confusion and desperate hope. Mr. Evans looked uncomfortable, as if he knew something important was about to explode, and he had no control over it. For the last 15 years, Arthur Morgan built a second empire, a parallel empire that no one in this room, except for me and now Eleanor, knew about. Antonio pushed the first document toward the center of the table. $42 million in real estate properties registered completely in the name of Eleanor Morgan. The silence was absolute. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the distant hum of the air conditioning, my own heart pounding like a war drum. Michael was the first to react. That's impossible. Dad would have told us. He would have included us in. He did not want to include you, Antonio interrupted coldly. In fact, he specifically excluded you. Here are the property records. Every building, every parcel of land, every investment, all in his wife's name. Caroline picked up one of the documents with trembling hands. Her eyes scanned the pages. Every line, every number. The color drained from her face with every passing second. This cannot be legal. Dad was not mentally well. He was under stress. Arthur Morgan was evaluated by 3 independent psychiatrists 1 month before his death. Antonio placed more papers down. All of them certified that he was in full command of his mental faculties. Every decision he made was deliberate, calculated, and completely legal. Daniel was staring at the table, his face buried in his hands. He did not even try to read the documents. I think in that moment, he understood before his siblings what had really happened. Their father had tested them, and they had all failed. But that is not all, Antonio continued, savoring every word. It was not cruelty, it was justice. Arthur also established a shell corporation 15 years ago. Investments in technology, international real estate, venture capital funds. That corporation is worth approximately $68 million. He pushed another set of documents forward, also registered completely in the name of Eleanor Morgan. Michael shot to his feet, his chair falling backward with a crash. This is bullshit. Dad cannot do this. We're his children, and she is his wife of 45 years. Antonio's voice was steel. The woman who sacrificed her career, her dreams, everything, so that you 3 could have the life you had. The woman you kicked out of her own home. The woman you let starve in a miserable apartment while you spent millions on unnecessary luxuries. Every word was a slap. Michael just stood there, shaking with rage and helplessness. Caroline was crying silently, her makeup running down her cheeks. Daniel was still, head in his hands, defeated. Mr. Evans finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. What is the total estate? Adding the properties, the accumulated cash, and the shell corporation, Eleanor Morgan is the owner of approximately $116 million. Antonio leaned back in his chair. More than double what you 3 inherited. And unlike your estate, hers does not have a single dollar of debt. The silence that followed was devastating. All the arrogance, all the superiority, all the contempt my children had shown for months instantly evaporated. They looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. I was no longer the useless old woman. I was the wealthiest person in the room. Mom. Caroline tried to speak through her sobs. We did not know. If we had known. You would have been different, I interrupted. My voice was calm, but firm. You would have treated me with respect if you knew I had money? You would have loved me only because it was convenient? No one answered. Because we all knew the answer. I stood up slowly. For the first time in this meeting, all eyes were on me. But now it was not out of pity or contempt. It was out of respect, out of fear, out of the understanding that the balance of power had completely shifted. For 45 years, I became what you needed. The perfect wife, the sacrificial mother, the one who always put everyone else first. I walked around the table, my steps echoing in the room. And when your father died, you discarded me like trash. You humiliated me. You left me alone. You taught me that the love I gave you for your entire lives meant nothing. Michael opened his mouth to speak, but I stopped him with a look. Arthur gave me this fortune. But more importantly, he gave me the chance to see you without a mother's illusions. I saw you exactly as you are, greedy, cruel, selfish. I paused, and now I have a decision to make. The 3 of them tensed. They knew what was coming. The question that had been floating in the air since Antonio started revealing everything. You are in massive debt, on the verge of bankruptcy, and I have more than enough money to save you. Hope glittered in their eyes, pathetic, desperate, but I am not going to. The blow was visible. Caroline let out a whimper. Daniel shut his eyes tightly. Michael's hands clenched into fists until his knuckles turned white. Not because I am vengeful, but because your father was right. You need to learn this lesson, the hard way. You need to understand that money without values is a curse. You need to build something for yourselves for the first time in your lives. I walked to the door. Then I stopped and turned one last time. If someday, not tomorrow or next month, but someday, in the future, when you have learned humility, when you understand the value of hard work and compassion, if at that moment you come to me as children who truly love their mother and not as beggars looking for money, then maybe, just maybe, we can rebuild what was broken. I walked out of that conference room with my head held high. Behind me I heard sobs, muffled shouts, the sound of a world collapsing, but I kept walking. Because for the first time in 70 years, I was walking toward my own future, not someone else's. Antonio caught up with me in the hallway. He was smiling. Arthur would be proud. I know. And I did. I could feel it, as if his spirit were there, watching, finally at peace. 3 months later, I was standing in front of a new building in the center of the city. My building. Not as an investment, but as my new architecture studio. Eleanor Designs, the sign on the entrance read. Small, modest, but mine. I had hired 3 talented young architects. I paid them well. I taught them everything I knew. And for the first time in decades, I was creating again, designing, building, living. My children had not called. I heard from Antonio that they had filed for corporate bankruptcy. Michael was working at a real estate firm as a regular agent. Carolyn had sold the mansion and was living in a normal apartment. Daniel had gone back to college to finish a degree he abandoned years ago. Maybe one day they would come to me, maybe not. But I was at peace with both possibilities. Because I finally understood what Arthur had been trying to teach me. The greater the humiliation, the greater the preparation. What seemed like the end was only the beginning of who I really was. It took me 70 years to find myself, but it was worth every second of pain. I looked at the phone Arthur had left me, now kept on my desk like a relic. I smiled. Thank you, my love, for believing in me when I did not believe in myself, for giving me wings when I thought I only deserved chains, for reminding me that it is never too late to start over. Outside, the city shined with infinite possibilities, and I, Eleanor Morgan, was finally ready to live them all.